obviously, and those of you who don't know, I know Eric quite well. I'm external examining on the MA Sport and Society programme for him starting this academic year. Eric asked me, as you tend to do with the external examiners coming in on induction, to see if they're willing to give a talk in the afternoon before they catch their train home, so I said I was absolutely fine to do that. So what I want to try and do today is, in a way, provide a quick whistle-stop tour of my research on this area around football. Looking at, trying to pitch a little bit to the undergraduate market, I know there's a few undergraduate students in here, and how you can take ideas forward, and how things happen and how you can take them forward. And all of my research I'll talk about is available on this. Those of you on the undergraduate programme, you might not be aware of this, the site academia.edu, but I actually think it's a very good site to publish your work in some way. So it's a one-stop tour. So if you followed me on Twitter, then you'll see that as part of my Twitter link, I have this particular link here. You click on that, it'll take you straight to my research, which I'm going to talk about today. Before I go, a little bit of self-promotion, mainly directed towards Rory and my other lecturer friends. I know that there's one book out that I've got, Football's Dark Side, which homophobia is one chapter in, was published last year. Another book, A Sociology of Football in a Global Context, another, again, a chapter on gender, of which homophobia is part of that chapter, is coming out with Routledge in 2 weeks. So please purchase that for your library. Not for yourself, at £85 is extortionate. So, right, what I want to just sort of highlight very quickly, because I know I'm a bit conscious of time, is highlight some recent events that can be taken forward into research. And in a way it shows you what I did and where I started in terms of my research around the culture of football. Now we haven't got time to debate these sorts of things. Hopefully it'll load. Yeah, okay, this was an article taken from the Daily Telegraph last year where the FA are now starting to introduce powers where there's an ELCA and the anti-Semitism. This is just, I'll let this run as I'm talking. The FA are releasing this thing where you can start to report incidents of discrimination.
Stopping abuse and all forms of discrimination. As we believe that football is for everyone, but we need your help. If you see or hear discrimination on the pitch, at the training ground or in the stands, we want you to report it.
Okay.
If you see or receive abusive messages
I'm going to stop this.
Twitter,
Eric, I'll send you this presentation so you can circulate it. Okay, but just wanted to sort of highlight the approach of the FA, and if we've got some time and maybe some time for some questions at the end, we can look at the role of the FA in tackling discrimination in this country, and in some ways the results of my research is quite critical of it. I'm sure some of you in the room think the same. Again, another thing that I sort of in a way taps into some of my research is a lot of my research is done online, because I think here's an opportunity. This particular platform, the internet, gives you a significant opportunity to capture large data, and I'll talk about that a bit later. But one of the things what it does, it gives you the opportunity as a researcher to capture a large amount of data. But what it also does, it gives those haters and those abusers and those trolls, etc., a platform to sort of communicate their particular hate speech. And this was a particular article that was released, I think, nearly 2 years ago, where the police were going to start to try and target online abuse. Twitter say that they have 500 million tweets sent a day. So this particular platform is a huge platform for communication. I think it's a good platform for networking. But it's only in February that the CEO of Twitter said that they suck at dealing with trolls. So this is a thing that Twitter are now going to try and catch up on in terms of the sort of online sort of abusers that target particular people with hate speech. And then this is an incident. This just shows you that how you can react to things. This was a story that was released. I think it was yesterday I saw it. It's taken from Australia. It's taken from rugby, and how sort of particular incident happened, and now some people are being fined immediately for their reaction. So there was a game of rugby going on. David Pocock, I think his name is it Pocock. Adam, you're a rugby man. Is it Pocock, the guy? Have you heard this story? Basically, there was a game going on, and Pocock was complaining to the referee that sort of particular terms would be. David Pocock here, Australian rugby player. He was complaining to the referee that the opposition team were referring to some of their players as faggots. The referee did nothing about it, but now you can start to see this particular incident has been acted upon very quickly, not like some of the incidents that happen in our country. that sort of drag on. You think about the Malky Mackay story in terms of football, where it was being racist, homophobic, sexist. That case is still ongoing, you know, nearly a year after it broke. So I, think dealing with these incidents swiftly and sharply is a good thing. Okay, so what I want to just, anyway, I'm not going to sort of make this a sort of an Eric Anderson type of sort of lecture, but his work is influential in my research. What I want to sort of, I'm sure those of you who have been taught by Eric at the university are aware of the work of Raewyn Connell and the sort of the context of the 1980s. Okay. What I want to do is talk very, very briefly about the environment of the 1980s. And this is a picture of those of you who don't know. This is a picture of Justin Fashanu, who was the first out British professional footballer in 1990. The Sun were going to out him, so he decided he would sell his story to the Sun, as an exclusive. So Fashanu came out at a time not only of heightened homophobia, but also heightened racism. And as a black gay man, his life was a misery. So he was completely disowned by his teammates, his fans, the media, and also his own brother, John, who was also a professional footballer. And in a way, it sort of captures what Eric was referring to as the sort of the 1980s, the early 1990s, as a very homo-hysteric environment. Football had high levels of homo-hysteria, the fear by men and boys of being thought to be gay. And this came through not only fans, teammates and players, but also the media and even his own family. So this is why I think Eric's work is very influential in looking at football as an environment in terms of research. This sort of context of football as heteronormative. So, go back to the history of football, the traditional working class game, men working in factories, working long hours, doing very physical labour, then going to watch a game of football, either watching a game of football or playing a game of football. And this particular heteronormativity of football continued for 100 years until the 1980s, and then we got our first out British black footballer here, Justin Fashanu. And in a way I want to show you, I'm aware of this particular research, and I just want to show you this video. This was a video that some of you have seen in the room, I appreciate, but some of you might not have seen. And this was a video that the FA were going to release in 2010 and pulled it at the last minute because they didn't get support. And I'm just going to see if we've got some time to watch this. I apologise for maybe the advert that's going to come on.
Doing this is fun, but sometimes it is a lot.
So remember, this is an advert that the FA were going to release.
It's 35 people, Lisa. Yeah, whatever. Queer scum. What? Hey, ass bandit. Did you just touch my leg? Hey, faggot. Kids alright? Good stuff. Bender. Bummer. Shit, let's go. Red boy! He's queer! He's bad! His ass is open! You're queer! On your diaries, you scum! You puff! Rubbish!
Okay, any brief thoughts about that? I know there's a number of you in the room who have seen that, and certainly I know that a number of you have researched football and looked at that video as well. Any particular thoughts on that? Yeah?
Why was it they pulled it or did not get support?
A Toronto school trustee with some questionable social media activity in the past.
Okay, he basically pulled it because they didn't get support.
Who was the support not forthcoming
from the PFA, the Professional Footballers Association.
And what didn't they like about it?
They basically, no professional footballers would support it. They tried to get professional footballers to support the campaign, and none of them would support it, which in a way told its own story at that particular point in time. You had, when this was released, you had Max Clifford, the now infamous Max Clifford, saying that he'd been speaking to 2 or 3 professional footballers, Premier League footballers, who he had told to stay in the closet because it was going to impact upon their potential earning and his as an agent. They just couldn't support it. And you had also the Gordon Taylor, who's the for those of you who don't know, he's actually the chief executive of the Professional Footballers Association. and earned a significant, he's probably the richest trade union leader in the country in terms of members' wealth. And he basically said that football was steeped in homophobia, and he referred to football in the dark ages and all these sorts of things, and we need to sort of come out until crowds are a bit more civilised. And really what that was the start of me thinking, actually, the portrayal of fans, and I'm a football fan, as the portrayal of football fans like that particular guy in the video made me think, actually, yes, this is an opportunity, this is an area ripe for interest, ripe for academic interest, because it was the publication of all football fans behaving that way that made me think, actually, do they? When I was younger, I used to go to a lot of football matches, don't go to so many anymore. But it was the portrayal of fans in that way that made me think, okay, I'm going to start to look at this. And what it did was, my research around football and homophobia started then in February 2010 when that video was pulled. And the first study, and I'll talk very briefly about these 4 areas over the next few slides. The first study was actually looking at to try and capture as wide a response to an online survey. So those of you who've known my research will realise that a lot of it is online. One aspect of which, the first one, we set up an online survey, and we basically, with anything online, you can get the importance of the URL, get the website address out in the public domain as much as you can. That particular study lasted for 4 months. We started it in June 2010. It went to October 2010, and when we got 3,500 responses, we just said enough was enough. Which we had 3,500 responses from, in terms of the part of the questionnaire, the online questionnaire, asked the participants to state where they were from in the world. We had 35 responses from all across the world. We had such a massive interest in this particular study. It was covered quite widely in the media. And what happened is, and I'll talk about the results of this on the next slide. And I've got a very interesting story just to show you, in terms of those of you in the room who are looking to publish, about the game that you play in terms of publication, and I'll talk about that on the next slide. But what happened was, this started a process for me of like registering in lots and lots of fans forums. So now, 4 or 5 years later, in terms of looking at these areas, I'm registered in over 100 fans forums, which again you can go in. I can now capture over 1,000 responses on a particular topic within a week of engaging in that sort of method now, because I've got so many networks that I've built up over 5 years. So what happened here is to sort of you put the URL, you write to website moderators, you ask permission to sort of do research in this area, they give you some advice, some of them say no, and you publish your URL. And what happens is, some particular, and this is killing 2 birds with 1 stone sort of approach, my intention is to get the participants, or the fans, to fill in the survey. But what you find in message boards is that some complete the survey, others then debate it in the message board itself. And so and that's an approach I've sort of similarly taken since. So this particular study, where my intention was to get fans from all across the world to fill in a survey based on their views towards homophobia in football, but also the message boards were so rich with data that I thought, okay,